Thank you, Robert. So it's my turn. 6 months ago, I was up here doing interviews for a job that I will come to get as the CIO for Lake Michigan Credit Union. And during these interviews, him and I would talk. We, spend a lot of time together. Well, he would take me to the airport. But the reason he had to take me to the airport was we were in a car and I had to drop it off at 28th Street. And then he would be there to pick me up, and then we'd leave. So the last time, I walk into the Enterprise and I drop off my keys, and the girl there is saying, how was it? It was good. It was good. Well, what are you doing in Florida? I live there. I'm moving up there, and she's striking up this conversation. I'm like, wait a minute. Hey, this girl's flirting with me. Well, that's pretty cool. I feel like I still have it. So I'm walking out of the Enterprise feeling good about myself. I jump in the car and I look at this guy and says, "This isn't an Uber." And I look over, there's my dad laughing at me in the car that I was supposed to be in. Dad just take me to the airport. So greatness is required in the Ortega family. And what I mean by that, required, it means it's assumed, we already know that everyone in our family is great. We already got it. And I always likened it to like this little flame that's inside of us, like a pile of light. And every time we were challenged or did something that, kind of brought us down, there was that flame that would go boof, and we would charge ahead. Everybody in my family. When I say the Ortega family, that's everybody connected to the Ortega family, but not just blood relatives. It was just expected in our family. So my Uncle Roger, my dad's older brother, used to tell a story about how he would come to my grandfather and tell him how he made the All-Star team, and it's going to be on the All-Stars. My grandfather goes, "All-Stars?" What he meant by that was, and my Uncle Roger would laugh, and he'd say, "Wow, that's pretty harsh." But later in the conversation, my Uncle Roger would say, "Well, that kind of lit something inside of me to make me greater than just being an all-star. It made us greater to push forward." So that light, or that pilot light, didn't inflame, but for my dad, my dad had me when he was 17. That light went off and that flame went on him, and he worked hard. He was a mover. He would carry stoves on his back, like Uncle Robert would say, how strong he was. And he did it for his family, to raise us 3 kids. And he pushed forward with that. That flame is in everybody in our family. My Aunt Betty took care of my grandmother. That flame, poof, went on. She just took over. The passions that we have drive us. So my dad used to say to me, "Chris, why is that you have to work, when you work it takes work, I'm sorry. Why is it that you have to learn the hard way? Why do you have to learn the hard way?" I'm like, "I don't know, I'm a kid. You've done things." He always said that to me, like, "You always have to learn the hard way. I'm trying to teach you stuff, and you always have to learn the hard way." And as fathers and sons do, they have their thing going on. And later on, I went to college, and it was hard. I had to do it myself. I had to pay for it myself. My dad didn't really help me that much, and that really bothered me. And I couldn't understand. Here's a guy that's helping everybody. He's not helping me. So I was sat down with him at my grandmother's house, and I'll never forget it. And I said, "Dad, I feel like when I turned 18, being a dad was over for you." He said, "Well, yeah, it kind of is." I go, "Okay, I got it." And to me, it kind of lifted something from me, because I was so just thinking about that all the time. I felt like it brought me down. I thought, "Okay, great. Now that I got that off my shoulders, I can trudge ahead. I can do my thing." But that wasn't enough. It felt good. And I was going on with my life, but, a couple years later, I was still struggling. And I remember, sitting in my car, I was homeless. Hadn't been anywhere in 2 or 3 months in a rest area, just thinking like, I'm gonna get out of this. And I could hear the words my grandfather in my ear saying, you have to work twice as hard as everybody else to get anywhere. Oof, I looked in front of my name. I'm calling in favor. I had an epiphany. Need to help me out? She said, sure, come on over. Started going on with my life. So fast forward many years, and my dad started a business, Alternative Mechanical. And about the same time, I was creating success for myself. And we would talk, and he would tell me about how all these things he was doing, and all the stuff in the community. And I was like, well, yeah, that's what we do. It was that fire. I don't even know exactly what happened for him, that oof, to go ahead and make success. So, but as him and I talked more and more, I really appreciate my father because he did what he should have done for me and made me earn my way. He didn't give it to me. He knew that I learned the hard way, and that by helping me, like he was helping everybody else, he just enabled my behavior. So I appreciate that. I wouldn't change a thing. And so as I got to work with him a little bit, he had hired me, to do some work for my Alternative Mechanical. We got to talk more. He just created more and more success. And then just, recently, we had said our goodbyes. And I couldn't be more proud of my father. He defined the way he wanted to go. He defined really everything up to the last minute. David Goggins says the story about what keeps him motivated, where he says, imagine going to heaven, and David Goggins says, I go to heaven and there's God with this list of things. And he says, and I had not changed these things about my life. I was 300 pounds, I was worked in Ecolab, spraying for cockroaches, and God gives me this list to read that says, Navy SEAL, motivational speaker, changed the lives of millions. And he says to the guy, well, that's not me, man. The guy goes, oh, that's what you're supposed to be. But for my dad, I envisioned God looking at a list and giving it to my dad and saying, wow, you did all of these things. Welcome home, Richard. Welcome home, Dave. Join your family, your parents, your brothers. Greatness has been achieved. So, I'm proud of my dad. He's a great man, and I'm excited to follow in his footsteps and do the things I hope can compare to what he's done. Dr. Olivares said, Lupe had read about, I had lunch with him, and I asked him about my grandfather, if he knew him, and he said, oh, your grandfather, legend. So I'd like to say that Dr. Olivares, I think my dad has become a legend, and I really hope to get there someday too. So thank you, everybody, for coming. If you bear with me a couple seconds, I want to thank some people. Mary, thank you for letting us do this. And thank you for allowing us to get together and have kosher. Mary's sisters, they were like the little fairies in Cinderella, the good little fairies. They were all over me, and they were great. I was just bewildered how awesome they were. They took care of Mary. I appreciate that. Because my brother and I were just sitting there. We're not good at that stuff. I'd like to thank my sister for coming up from Florida. I'd like to thank my brother and his family for being here. I'd like to thank my son for coming here. And finally, I'd like to thank Julie for bringing me here. Being connected to her also requires greatness. And so please thank her for getting me up here to not live here and be with you all.